As far as like Aquaman, it seems like DC's really going towards like they're trying to make their stuff more family friendly now because like all the Zack Snyder stuff was quite more mature in like tone. So there's a lot more jokes. There's a lot more color in terms of just like the color grading of the overall like movie. And I don't know. I don't like Aquaman. I sort of view it as like maybe my third favorite. I think I enjoyed it more than Wonder Woman. Even regardless of like the some of my issues with Aquaman are like the tone. It's sort of all over the place in terms of like tone, like whether it's trying to do sort of like a swashbuckling adventure with elements of like romancing the stone. And there's some aspects of the film that are even sort of reminiscent of like the Lord of the Rings in the third act with just how like grand scale it is. And I just feel like the movie could have juggled those aspects better. And some of the dialogue is quite poor, but I just found this movie to be just kind of bonkers and just I don't know. I was just sort of like immersed in this underwater world that James Wan set up, and I thought like all of that stuff was done great. Um, but I just think there was some things that could have been really improved as far as maybe the writing and the directing, and like some of the characters like Mara and Volko. It's like almost all those characters do are just spout off exposition, like they're just there to explain stuff the entire time. And there's a few times throughout the movie where it's like Orm's talking about how he's gonna take over the seven kingdoms, and then he'll say something sort of menacing, and then he'll cut to Volko and he's just like, he just has this like face like he's supposed to be the audience's like sense of like fear. And they do that like three or four times in the movie, and just it kind of got to be a little bit old. But Zhen Chang, what were some of your favorite parts of the movie, or did you not like the movie at all? I'm kind of curious to hear what you thought. um but yeah, it seems to be that a lot of people are sort of split down the middle uh, with Aquaman. I think it has like a 64 on Rotten Tomatoes, critic wise, and some people love the movie, some people dislike it, but um, I really had a great time, and like the whole third act, and I think the middle of the movie is where it's sort of like there's a big lull. Like it takes like an hour for this movie to really get into the plot, and there's so much to set up in terms of these characters. Like you never really got a sense of the origin of Aquaman. Like in Justice League, he's over in like I don't remember where it was. Was it Finland or Iceland or somewhere out there in like Scandinavia? And you never really got a sense of where this guy really came from. But there's just way too much to set up in this movie. And I mean, some of the stuff I really liked, but some of the stuff is just like I think it could have really been cut down and sort of shortened the length of the movie because it's like 2.5 hours. Zhen Chang says, I guess the exposition parts were to help those less familiar with Aquaman to get into the scenario. I agree. Yeah, there's a ton to set up in this movie. Um, and I actually really enjoyed the dynamic between Arthur's mom, Atlanta, and is it Atlanta or Atlanta? I don't remember, but his dad, Todd. So or Tom, it was Tom, I think. I don't remember, but yeah, I really loved the relationship. I thought that was quite charming. I mean, it's not maybe the strongest aspect, but um, I don't know. I like that they incorporated that. I thought, we don't see that too often where it's like this hero's parents have this arc as well. So I thought that was kind of cool. I do enjoy the made for big screen scenes very much. The whole set piece in the end, like I thought that was just mind blowing. I saw that in the trailer and I was like, oh my god, like this is gonna have like a massive Lord of the Rings battle in this movie, and I was just like, I totally ate it up watching this movie, and like it was almost like watching. It was like Star Wars underwater, not in terms of like you know the story of Star Wars or anything like that, but like a big epic like space battle with like laser beams flying across the screen, but like underwater with like characters riding on top of massive seahorses and like great white sharks, and then you bring in the kingdom of the brine, which are like these crabs and lobsters. And I just was like, this is completely nuts. And I just loved it. And I thought it was so crazy, and it's almost like I couldn't even believe what I was watching on the big screen. Like it was just something so like stripped out of a comic book. Like I never would have thought like something like this would be made in a highly budgeted like comic book movie. And I know we've seen weird things in the past, with Guardians of the Galaxy and even Thor Ragnarok, but like I don't know, it's just seeing Aquaman brought to the big screen on such a high scale level. It's like, I don't know, it's something that like I never thought I would see, and I had a great time. Um, so there's one scene that each time I watch it, I just sort of cringe each time. And that is the scene where it's one of the flashback scenes with Arthur and Volko, and they're on the beach. And I don't remember if it's a training montage or what, but it's when Volko's showing Arthur how to master the trident, and he's like spinning it really fast, and he knocks Arthur back, and then Arthur says something like, "When am I ever going to be ready?" And it somehow transitions into him asking about his mom, and I think Volko says that his mom died, or I don't know, maybe it's not died, but he doesn't think his mom loved him or something like that. And it's just some of the worst acting I've ever seen in like a high budgeted comic book movie. It's almost like something from like the Disney Channel, maybe. I don't know. I just thought it was really terrible. But are there any other like sequences in the film that you thought were pretty awesome or bad? I guess we could talk about either. So, um, but one aspect I thought was awesome was it's when Arthur and Mara are first going to Atlantis, and they're in her like watercraft or ship. I don't know, her little like portable or like personal little like submarine craft, I guess you could call it. And just some of the shots and the design work as they're like eventually going to Atlantis was just some of like the most beautiful like concept art I've ever seen. Like just these like huge wide angles of this like underwater landscape, and it was almost like Blade Runner or something like that, where it's, I guess you could even say like Blade Runner 2049. There's a scene where uh Ryan Gosling's character's leaving that house on the outskirts of LA, and he's coming back into town, and it really sort of, I don't know, it just sort of gives you like the scope and the feel of the place, and I thought they did that excellent. Um the young actor was kind of wooden, but I guess he got chosen for his looks that hinted at of the adult look later. Yeah, that's probably most likely. Um, the City and Guards were kind of Blade Runner and Tron for me, especially the music. Yes, thank you for bringing up. You know, it really was a mixture of like Blade Runner and Tron, like underwater, and especially the music. The music was very reminiscent of Blade Runner and Tron. It had those synths and like just trying to like I guess before watching this movie, I was trying to think of like what type of music would fit with Atlantis. And sure, you could do some like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings type music, I guess. But I think the Blade Runner Tron 80s like synth really, put it up another level for me. And I thought it just delivered for me. I thought it was great, and it sort of made me feel like I was watching a throwback like 80s like sci-fi adventure movie. I guess similar to like Blade Runner or Tron, Flash Gordon even. I thought that was great. And like you don't get too much of Atlantis. Like you don't really get to, I guess, experience like you never get a sense of like people actually live here, I suppose. Like you don't see like people walking down like a sidewalk or like I don't know, like somebody's home, really. It's just like these pardon me. It's just like these buildings and like a sense of the city, I guess. And I would really like to see where like people live in Aquaman 2. Like I want to see Arthur's like his I'd like to see Arthur's castle or kingdom or his like bedroom, something like that. I want to feel like it's a place where people actually live, not just like a place where there's like a coliseum and like these big grand rooms with like a throne. I mean, I want a little bit more of that, I suppose. Just more of a sense that people actually live there and there's like stuff people do versus like I don't know. It didn't feel lived in, I suppose. I want like a lived in feel the next time we see Atlantis portrayed, but that's just kind of a nitpick. I mean, I can't imagine like having to sort of visually construct something like that. So it's just kind of a nitpick for me. But I do sort of want to talk about, I guess, Black Manta. Now, I feel like this was a character that he got his intro in the film, but he never really had a full arc, I guess. And the aspects of his father in the beginning of the movie, I thought that was done somewhat well. And it was kind of shoehorned in there with like his father giving him the dagger, like, okay, you're gonna do this right in the middle of like trying to hijack this Russian submarine. Like it felt shoehorned in there, but like I feel like it's a great way to sort of like build a motivation inside of Black Manta to sort of be against Aquaman. And Aquaman had the choice to help save Black Manta's father, but he decided to he told him to beg the ocean for mercy. And so yeah, there's a kind of a, I guess, Black Manta's holding a grudge against Aquaman. So we'll see how that plays out in Aquaman 2 if we get that. But judging by Aquaman's box office, like this movie is, it's on its way to make $1 billion. It was crazy to see Venom. I don't know if that crossed 900 million worldwide, but it really got up there. It beat up it outgrossed a lot of other comic book movies, even like Wonder Woman, and like the first Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, maybe. But it made a crap ton of money, which is quite surprising because it's just Venom. But yeah, it'll be curious to see how well Aquaman does. Overseas it's just crushing the box office, but we got weekend 2 here, so we'll see how well it does in the United States. But I hope it does well. I want to see an Aquaman 2. I hope they can really improve like the writing and the some of the emotional beats were kind of weak. For me, the Black Manta story showed more of Aquaman's development as a character as the movie progressed. Yeah, that's true. I guess pretty much the whole premise of Aquaman is that he's this reluctant hero, that he doesn't feel like he's ready to be a leader or be a king. Like, is he worthy? That's sort of the whole theme of this movie for Aquaman and like his arc. And then eventually he's man enough to take the responsibility and, finally challenge or re-challenge Orm for the throne. Um, but yeah, I guess that's sort of what his character was there to sort of that's that character's purpose, was to sort of do that for Aquaman, that arc. Um, I was sitting next to my dad the second time I saw this movie, and the whole sequence on, I think it was in Sicily, when Black Manta and his like crew of Atlantean goons were there to I think they were there to kill Aquaman and take Mara, but um, like there was a sequence where like Black Manta like jumped up with his like jetpack and like did a superhero landing, and my dad looked at me and he was just like, Power Rangers. And I guess, yeah, some of the I can see why somebody might think like the Atlantean guards and like Black Manta might sort of look like Power Rangers, but like I told him as we were leaving the theater, like, Dad, I view this as like something from like a 1950s TV show or like movie, where it's like this pulpy like sci-fi, where like these like old retro like movies where it's like this it just has this like pulpy sci-fi aesthetic to it. And even just like that old school like sci-fi art, if you just like Google something like pulp sci-fi art, like stuff like that will pop up, where it's just like the design of the Atlantean guards armor. And I don't know, like I sort of viewed it as that, not necessarily something like the Power Rangers. But even that sort of design for like the Power Rangers is probably pulled from that like old school like sci-fi flavor. I mean, well, I guess even like Godzilla, all that stuff like stems from the 1950s. So it's kind of all where it comes from. So yeah, think about that next time you watch it, Dad. But anything else? I guess, what did you think about the third act as far as the that whole action set piece? That to me was just like, I just ate that up. Like, there was so much about that, whether it was it probably was the plastic looking armor, definitely. Oh, the trench scene had the James Wan horror touch. Yes, it definitely did. The trench scene was, um, I was really looking forward to that. We saw a clip of that in the trailers, and that definitely was quite. It had that James Wan, just that James Wan horror look. I'm gonna adjust this real quick. There we go. But shit, now the top's off. Yeah, the whole trench sequence was, I thought was really cool. And I'm sure like going into that, he was really looking forward to, utilizing these characters and in a horror way. It wasn't entirely scary. Like I still think like, something like The Conjuring, it it didn't really come that close, but it did inject sort of that horror nature that James Wan is known for. And eventually we get to the hidden sea at the Earth's core, which that was something like, oh my god, this is something out of like a Jules Verne novel or something like that. Um, or H.P. Lovecraft, like going to the Earth's core and, these weird creatures. Um, And then eventually Atlanta is she escaped the trench after she was thrown to, you know, her king, grew jealous or whatever and threw her to the trench to, to be executed pretty much. And she survived and had been living there for like 30 years or so. And by the way, like the way Nicole Kidman was dressed up when she's reunited with Arthur, I just I couldn't help but laugh. Like she's wearing this ridiculous like outfit and she has like clumped up like dreadlocks, and I was just like, what do you think is running through Nicole Kidman's mind like while she was dressing up? I mean, she's not a stranger to comic book movies or DC. Batman Forever, Dr. Chase Meridian. So I thought that was kind of funny. But that whole sequence where Arthur has to take the trident, King Atlan's trident, um, and even that, like, he gets it by saying he's not worthy, and ends up being able to talk to the Car- Carnath. I don't remember the creature's name, but it's voiced by Julie Andrews, which is kind of cool, I suppose. But yeah, that whole thing where he gets the trident, and um, oh, I do want to talk about. So you have this is I guess the whole sequence where Mara and Arthur are trying to track down the whereabouts of the trident, and there's the whole sort of like hologram video of Atlan, and he's explaining the downfall of Atlantis, like before it was, this like thriving pardon me, it was this thriving city in and then it's showing us like this steampunk, like highly technologically advanced city, and like I thought that was amazing. And to see it, like how it sort of sunk into the bottom of the sea, that they were using they were greedy of power, I suppose, and it was ultimately like their demise. I thought that was really cool. Nicole's Not Dead scene reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon 2, where the main character found his supposedly dead mom in a shaman looking suit. I don't remember How to Train Your Dragon 2. I know I've seen the first one, but um, I've been told that the second one is pretty good. And I don't know if I don't remember if the third one's out yet or if that's coming out soon. I don't know. I'm not really up to date on the DreamWorks movies, I guess. But yeah, like and then at the end of the movie, she like walks up after Orm and Arthur are they just battled. Aquaman defeated Orm, and it appears that he's about to kill Orm, but he shows mercy, and then their mom walks up just like out of nowhere wearing this like nightgown, I guess, and she tells Orm that he's been misguided, which I never really got sort of a sense of their previous, I guess, the previous king, like Orm's dad. Like I never really understood what happened to that guy. Did he die? Did he, leave? What happened to the king before Orm? I felt like that was never really explained very well. Yeah, they never showed where she got that nightgown. Like she just walked up on the that ship or whatever, and she came out of nowhere. Where they literally probably came, they came from like the Earth's core. They rode the Coronath or whatever that creature was, broke through, the bottom of the seabed, and then started fighting. So she had to have ridden on that with Arthur and Mara. So did she get that from like another ship or something? I don't know. It's not the biggest deal, but it just makes you kind of curious as to like what did she do, like I don't know, trying to kind of in between um the battle and Orm and Arthur fighting, I guess. So it's kind of just a curious thing, more so for me, but I don't really care. But I mean, as far as other spoilers, there's not really that much in this movie to be like revealed. Like there's nothing like Infinity War where a bunch of characters die. No main characters actually die in this movie. I mean, the one surprising death is Jaimin Hansu, who voices the King Fisherman, the green fish merman, I guess. He voiced that character, and I was surprised they killed him off. Like the guy only had like 2 lines throughout the whole movie. So that was kind of surprising. But yeah, no main characters died in this movie. I even thought Arthur's dad was up for grabs, like for being killed. Like that whole like tsunami sequence. I thought Arthur's dad was going to die in that. I thought that was going to be sort of like the motivation for Arthur to, want to be king or like overthrow Orm. And that wasn't the case. Maybe she thought it would be a good idea to look through someone's closet while everyone was fighting for their lives. That's possible. That's possible. She could have, you never know. There may have been time to go into one of the ships and steal a gown. But I was kind of glad that they saved Orm. I didn't think he was like the greatest villain or anything, but I think there's definitely more potential to carry out a storyline. They could have easily have just like killed him, but I think saving him, there's more to be done with Orm. There's unfinished business, I suppose you could say. So I'm excited to see what they'll do in the sequel. I don't really know what they will do in the sequel. Like, I don't like Aquaman's a character that I'm not really familiar with. I mean, other than like Orm and Black Manta, like what else is there really to do? I mean, I'm sure we're going to get more Black Manta as well, but like at the end of the movie, you see him like washed up ashore. Like there's like the mid post credit scene where he's like, he gets, picked up by that scientist, and he's gonna help him like reconstruct his armor or whatnot. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see them team up. I wasn't surprised by the dad surviving till the end to reunite with the mom. Yeah, that's true. I guess it was sort of they sort of carried that throughout the film, where when Arthur tells his mom that his dad still walks out to the end of the dock every day at sunrise, there was that sort of like heartfelt moment, like, oh, she still does love him. So yeah, seeing them reunited at the end, I thought was kind of sweet. I'm worried of the scientist though. He's too over the top for me. Yeah, he was pretty cartoony. Yeah, he's the guy that played Kim Jong-un in James Franco and Seth Rogen's The Interview. And he is kind of like a cartoony kind of comedic actor. He doesn't feel like a person that lives on planet Earth. Like he feels like, I don't know. He feels like somebody like he feels like somebody like stripped out of like a like what are those like those Pinky and the Brain or the Animaniacs, those old like Warner Brothers cartoons. He feels like something ripped out of one of those shows, I guess. Like a mustache twirling villain, I guess. But with that character though, I never got a sense that he was like against Aquaman. Like he was more like trying to let the people on land know that this is what's going on. There's explosions on the seabed, and there's these people with highly advanced technology. And I never thought that he was anti Aquaman, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe he actually is. I didn't enjoy his goofy agent character in the Ant-Man sequel, too. Oh, that's right. He was like the FBI guy, wasn't he? Yeah, he was. And he was like the same he was like the same type of guy a little bit. Um was did he want to hang out with Scott Lang at the end of the movie? It was something ridiculous like that. It was something weird. Yeah, he was the FBI guy. I totally forgot about that. I mean, that movie in general, I mean, I only saw it one time, but I hardly remember anything about Ant-Man and the Wasp. All I remember is that they were like shrinking buildings and Lawrence Fishburne's in there. Um and there was that girl who was called like Ghost, I think. But that's one of the most forgettable comic book movies I've seen, probably, I don't know, in like the larger batch of these MCU movies. So yeah, I enjoy like the comedy aspect of Ant-Man, or the Ant-Man movies, I guess, but I don't really enjoy them as far as just like movies in their own right. Like I just I don't know. They're like the least rewatchable movies that I seem to view as far as the MCU or any comic book movie. But yeah, like where do you go with those characters in the sequel? And I want to see the tone sort of. I don't want to see a more serious tone, but I want to see a more well balanced tone. Like I feel like, and I don't know if it's the writing or James Wan. He's never really done a movie like this before. I mean, he did like Fast and Furious 7, which is like a large scale like action movie, but like there's elements of this movie that have tone that vary from whether it's a strong action movie sense of tone or fantasy or sci-fi, or even just the romance stuff, or even romantic comedy stuff where we see in some in Africa, and more so it's in Sicily. You have Mara eating the rose petals, all that stuff. It's, I don't know. I just feel like the tone, it goes from one extreme to the other, and it's just not it doesn't feel cohesive, I suppose. It just varies in degree so much, and I just feel like it could have been balanced a lot better. So that's, I guess, a complaint I have about it. But I mean, it doesn't really take away from my enjoyment of the movie. It's just kind of like, I feel like the movie would be a lot better if they could have nailed the balance and tone and get rid of some of the cheesy dialogue. Like there's lines that are just kind of like there to explain stuff. Like anytime Volk goes on screen, it's just like explain, explain, explain. And even Mara, like, why does she actually need Arthur? Like, she's of royal blood. She can control water. And, she could have easily, I guess, she may have not been able to defeat that creature, towards the end of the movie and get the trident. But I feel like other than that, she's a pretty self-sufficient character. But I don't know. It's like, why does this like strong female character, not that she's given a lot of backstory and you don't really get to know much about her, but I feel like she's a character that can kind of like kick ass. Like, why does she need this like guy that's like a reluctant hero? I don't know. I just feel like they could have, given Mara more of a, not necessarily backstory, but like, I don't know. You never really felt like you got a chance to like know who this character is, I suppose. I agree it was quite varied in tone. Maybe that's why what they were going for, to expand Aquaman beyond the common perception that he's just an ocean-dwelling superhero. Yeah, it was surprising how much of this movie took place underwater. Um, I really enjoyed how they set Aquaman, or I guess Arthur Curry, up in terms of like him as a kid, growing as a teenager and into adulthood, giving him reasons why, um, he's this sort of like, not emotionally broken, but like he's this guy that's, his mom left him. Um, I feel like he has an emotional reason to be how he's portrayed in the movie, and like how they're at the aquarium and he's being bullied, and he's like, "Hi, fishy, fishy," and just like talking to the fishes, and then those two bullies have him pinned up against the I guess the glass in the aquarium, and then the shark comes and like hits its nose against it and like cracks the glass, and then you see him like, I don't know, it must be for like the first time like actually communicating with the fish, and they're all sort of like gathered behind him. And I liked how they handled that aspect of like he can communicate with fish, but it's not like he can have like, it never shows you like he's having a conversation. Like I almost thought that in Aquaman there was going to be fish that would actually talk to him. And I was kind of worried about that. I thought that was going to be really cheesy and just kind of ridiculous, like seeing like a massive giant sea turtle like talking to Arthur with like animated lips, stuff like that. I'm glad they didn't do that. Um, and even the part where Aquaman and Mera are fleeing from Atlantis, and Arthur goes up to like a humpback whale, and kindly asks for them to, you know, sit inside of its mouth, and you like see him communicating with it, but it's not anything that's like over the top cartoony ridiculous. I thought they handled that quite well, and it's not like he does it all the time in the movie, but um there's even the part at the end of the movie, or not the end, but like that massive battle in the third act, where he's like holding his trident out, and like it's just like showing all like the beams of him communicating with the sharks and the seahorses and all the creatures, and they start turning on Orm's army. And I think the way they approached it was the right way. I think having actual fish and underwater creatures talking would have been a bad move. And we saw that with the big creature when Arthur's getting the trident, but that was really the only time, and I think they did that well. But other than that, do you have any other aspects about the movie you want to talk about? I feel like I'm running out of moments from this movie to talk about. I don't really have that much. Um, I thought what's his name? Patrick Wilson. I There's a couple moments where he's just like yelling, and his yelling just didn't work for me. It's like, yeah. Wasn't really into that. Um, the Coliseum fight was okay. It wasn't really anything to be like blown away by. Um, uh, let's see here. I think they certainly did a good job with talking to the fish ability from a commonly made fun ability to an epic one in the movie. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. Um, I think that could have been a thing that could possibly ruin the movie for a lot of people if they had like him talking to fish all the time, and it would be like animated lips, like something from like the Jungle Book or the Lion King, something like that. I feel like it would just be a little bit too much. Um, so I liked the way they handled all that stuff, but I think that's going to do it for this live stream. Thank you for joining me, Zheng Cheng. I'll try and do more of these when I have the opportunity, but I don't even know what movies are even coming out recently. I still need to check out Bumblebee. What did you think of Bumblebee? I've heard that was actually somewhat good. I know there's I have to check the release schedule of what's coming out, but usually the end of the year there's a couple big ones like Mary Poppins and Bumblebee. Bumblebee was a mix for you. I've heard a lot of stuff where it's like it's a ripoff of like E.T. or those Amblin movies. But yeah, it doesn't really look like anything much is coming out in the next couple weeks. Yeah, January is always a dumping ground for like shit. Like there's usually never that good of movies in January. February, you tend to get some okay stuff. Alita Battle Angel comes out in February. Oh, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World comes out February 22nd. So I was wondering when that was coming out. The Lego Movie 2, February 8th. So, the Cybertron scene was great, but it really was kind of E.T. with a chick flick vibe for the most part of it. Huh. I don't know. I might see it. I might not. We'll see. But I did want to see Mortal Engines, but after the reviews in the box office bomb that it was, I might stay away from it. Did you get a chance to see Mortal Engines? You know, it's a shame. I want to see Peter Jackson direct like a big budget movie again. And he was a producer on it, but it's kind of unfortunate to see movies like that, you know, tank. I mean, you need to make him good, but March is usually when things start to ramp up. You know, you get like Captain Marvel in there. You got Jordan Peele's Us horror movie. That trailer came out last week. That looked pretty cool. Um, Dumbo, Tim Burton's Dumbo movie. We'll see how that is. That's the end of March. Mortals was worth a watch for the city's design. Everything else was good. I do want to check it out, but um, I can handle like movies that are kind of bad. But if the visuals are good, like I can take the pain. Like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets was like that for me. Like it was so visually stunning that I almost didn't really care about the characters and story. Like I was able to sacrifice, you know, all of that stuff for enjoying the actual visual effects and all that. But I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining me on this Saturday. Hope you have a good New Year. Hope you had a good holiday. So we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.